All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to Wireheads. It is episode 61, part 2. If you are showing up here and you haven't seen part 1, down in the About section, it takes you to part 1, where we are talking about why Cyberpunk Red is such a different game. That being said, we are in this half, for anyone who's joining us, taking a very different step. But for anyone who's joining us, hello, I'm Diamond Dust. I am, a professional GM for a couple years. I do a lot of content over here on Twitch, and joining me, as always, every week.
Hi, my name's Emmerron. I'm some dude who wandered in here one day, slightly under the influence of substances, and I haven't left yet.
Oh, you were under the influence when you suggested we do a podcast?
I mean, I did suggest it by saying it was to the tune of, do you want to build a snowman? So I that is not a sober thought, even if I was sober when I sent it.
I mean, we're about 8 episodes away from episode 69. We could just do an episode where we just get, a little... We have some ideas,
Yeah, Wireheads the musical. That'd be a
oh vibe. God.
Look, if there was a group at PAX U when I went a couple weeks ago that I was part of to try out the Marvel TTRPG, and we became Marvel on Ice because our solution to every room being flooded in the scenario we were playing was to freeze it and just skate over it. It was hilarious. It was so much fun. So yeah, no, but bottom line is, I am also a content creator. I'm a professional GM. I am a consummate professional, I promise. This is our podcast where we yap for something like 2.5 hours each week, as long as both of us are healthy and able to. So, thank you all for being here.
I have a question for you.
God, your face got big when I took a sip. That was holy shit.
Look me in the eyes. Are you okay? Have you been taking care of yourself?
I mean, I've got caffeine in my system.
That's what we're talking about today. Well, not just you. I'm talking to all the people as well. Yeah, I know. Alright, so today we are talking about GM self-care and evaluation. Now you might be wondering, well, Diamond, what does this have to do with playing Cyberpunk? It has a lot to do with playing Cyberpunk because we are playing a game that is very dark and very near future and very much mirrors the dystopia that we live in nowadays, especially for us Americans. So that being said, even though I think the Cyberpunk timeline's a little bit better because at least healthcare is cheaper over there, but us as GMs, we wear a lot. We wear many hats. We are the referee, the storyteller, the planner. I guess the secretary, because you're planning the meetings, you're planning when people are meeting, dealing with the schedule. Yeah. You are also writing. You are doing perhaps also chef, because you might be preparing snacks for the gang as they're coming over. You are also on top of that, I guess the accountant, keeping track of certain things at the party. To a degree, you're a little bit of an accountant with keeping track of parties.
If you're a pro GM, the accountant takes on a whole different meaning.
Yes, yeah. This is true.
Because then you're managing your own accounting. You're also customer service for if players at your table have issues, and that is a very unique hat to pro GMing.
Yep, negotiator. You are also a player at the table, of course. You wear a lot of hats as a GM.
Yep.
Are you taking care of yourself? Because the number, probably one of the top reasons that tabletop groups do fall apart is because of GM burnout. I have had burnout before. It sucks. You love playing games. You love playing TTRPG games. I had... Oh, buddy. Oh. Do we need to have an intervention after the episode?
We're good. We're good. Mostly I'm memeing, but I think just about every GM, if you've been doing this long enough, like it's like
burnout phase.
It's like everything, right? You have a beautiful honeymoon period with a game, whether that's Cyberpunk or D&D or Pathfinder, anything. You'll have this like beautiful honeymoon period where all you want to do, especially if you're on the ADHD kind of spectrum, where like you hyperfixate and you just are like, fuck, I love this thing. Oh my God, I want to just talk about this thing. Oh my God, I want to just do this thing. And you're like theorizing and learning lore, and like everything of your spare time is being almost fully dedicated to something like a TTRPG. And then eventually, after a long enough period, or maybe there's an inciting catalytic event where like something bad happens and you are shaken from that, which is even worse in my opinion. You start to feel whether it's jaded or just worn out, or you hit writer's block. There's a lot of ways that burnout starts to take shape and form, and you need to know how to deal with it, especially if you are not in the position of stopping your campaign easily, for any number of reasons. Because again, like Diamond and I both said, we're pro GMs. Like that's our paycheck. That's like the bulk of our money is in not burning out hard to the point that we cannot run our games. That is a challenge. It's not easy all the time to do it. Yeah. And even Red says I'm in the picture of burnout and I don't like it. Yeah, welcome. So yeah, Diamond, please show us the way. I would love to learn.
So, and I want to say, I am no expert. I am no professional. If you feel that this is a little bit bigger of a problem than just a little GM burnout, talk to your friends. And if it's real serious, please go see a professional. Your mental health is important before any game.
Yep.
All right. First and foremost, like yeah, in Emmerron's Eye's case, it is our paycheck, but like even beyond that, it is one of the few things that in this world that brings me a lot of joy. Other things being women and my wife, but that aside, that being said, when it comes to taking care of yourself, your prep work, like I've talked about doing prep work before on my channel. I've talked about it before on stream. Prep work takes the load off pretty well. This could be, having, pre-gen, pre-gen adventures just off to the side, ready to go. If you don't have something planned that day, have that on hand.
Yep.
Make sure you have, water, you have snacks. Make sure that you are, make sure you're staying hydrated, staying fed, and taking care of yourself, because you cannot run a good game on an empty stomach or, lack of caffeine. Make sure you're caffeinated if you need it. And also on top of that, make sure that you are enjoying this game. You're not just running it because your friends will show up for this game. I know what that feels like.
Yeah, that one's critically important. That when you get to a point of like your players are demanding of you, run this for me, and you aren't feeling it, it is okay to tell them no. That is a very healthy boundary to have with your table that you need to establish as early as possible, because I've known people who were fantastic GMs that have sworn up and down they'll never GM again because they did not enforce that boundary and had players that just ran them ragged. That absolutely has happened. I've seen it with my own eyes. So yeah, do not be afraid to set boundaries with your table as well. That like, hey, if I'm not feeling it, or you know, if the majority of us aren't feeling it, we'll find something else to do. Especially if it's not, like I said, for Diamond and I are kind of in a unique case that isn't shared by nearly as many people in being pro GMs, where like there's a argument to be made for like we have to run because we need the money because that's our income, but that's more of an edge case. If you are running this for fun, and it is not a job
that's what
for
you need to do.
It's okay to pause. Like back before I pro GM'd or ran stream games or any of that, and I was just running for my wife and friends, we would have plenty of weeks where we all sit down at the table. It's 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and that's our time where we're gonna meet. We'd sit down at a table or sit down on Discord and be like ready, quote unquote, to go. And several of us are like, I don't know, man. I'm not really feeling it. Do we want to play Final Fantasy 14 instead? And everyone kind of like, yeah, because we all played. So it's like, okay, yeah, we'll just do that instead. And then we'd have a different thing that we still all did together. Like the time with our friends is preserved, but we did not stress about continuing the game when some of us weren't feeling it. Especially if I, as the game master, wasn't feeling it. Like the moment I said, you know, I'm kind of out of it. I'm low on energy. I had a hard day at work today. Like, maybe let's not do this tonight because I don't know that I could give you the best game that I'm capable of. And everyone would be like, absolutely, let's just play a game together instead. And play a video game together instead. And it was always better than trying to push through. Because we'd still get our time to chat, still get our time to hang out. And that was what really mattered there.
Another thing, and this is more for me specifically, like I do this for my own well-being as a GM. Technically, yes, a GM is a player at the table, but be a player every once in a while. Play in a game. Don't run the game. Play in a game. Just do that for yourself. Like for me, I am in Emmerron's Monday professional game because I'm looking for Cyberpunk Red games because I love the game. I love Cyberpunk Red. I GM it a lot, but I want to be able to play in a game as well, so that way I can keep myself sharp that way as well. That being said, yeah, the collective fog, I have felt that one before where we all get to the table and yeah, we're not feeling it that day. Yeah. So you've run the game. And like, of course, like other things that our GM self-care is like, make sure the lines and veils are clear, make sure all that's taken care of. But that's something we've discussed before on this channel and always pushed for. Yeah. But you've run the game. Everyone has packed up their dice, packed up their sheets, or you hold on to the sheets because we all have that one player. Fish, I'm looking at you.
VTTs are wonderful for that one reason. Is like no one ever loses their character sheet. You keep it and it's up to date.
And it's one of those things where I love having folks over, but like make sure you unplug. Like for me, I need to unplug from everything. I need to just like not talk to anybody for a good not talk to anybody for like a good 30 minutes to an hour, just that way I can recharge. Do what you need to in order to recharge, catch your second wind, because like Emmerron, you could agree, like an intense 3 to 4 hour session, it can be a lot on the brain. It can be taxing.
I find the way that I practice self-care is probably a little different there. Because, and this is actually kind of what gave birth to the way I run Neon Inferno and the way that show, when I'm running it as a stream, is structured. When my groups play, whether it's me running them or someone else I know running them, nearly always what we do after the game is done is we hang out a little longer. Like, you know, we'll cap the game at the 4-hour-ish mark, whatever, and then we will like go, you know, those of us who drink, we might like pop a beer open, and we like sit down and we chat sometimes about the game and like, you know, like dissect the way we behaved or the choices that we made, and like kind of gush over the highlights of the session, and like basically we all kind of come down together off of the high of running, and it really helps us kind of come back to reality a little bit, because it's not like, oh, we just are done and then we have to light switch. It was that kind of gradient of like coming back to reality. That's kind of why I do the Neon Inferno, like where we talk after the game is done, because it's very reminiscent of the way that I do that with my physical tables. And I know that that's like kind of unique to, if you are more extroverted, I feel like that is probably going to work better than if you aren't as extroverted. Like if you don't derive as much energy, like, because I know my wife would say the exact opposite of what I'm saying right now. She would want to, much like what you were saying, Diamond, like unplug and just like back away and not talk with people for a minute, because like you've already just burned all of your energy and you're like, I need to regather. Yeah.
I do like socialize for like maybe 15, 30 after session, but like I need a moment to I need quiet.
Right.
But yes, Red, aftercare is important. So which that's one of the things I do. Like part of like GM self-care is like post session, I check in with everyone. Like, hey, is everyone okay? Does anybody have questions about anything that went down tonight that you need answered before we continue going forward? And sometimes people will ask me certain things that may be spoilers, and I will say there will be an answer for that next week, or that answer is coming. Or it may be like, hey, why did this certain thing happen? And I will always talk about rulings I've made with my players after the game. So that way, like, we can, you know, play the game. And then when the question comes up, we'll have like a little discussion during game, but like after game, it's like, okay, guys, this is why I ruled the result this way, or I've made this call.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad way to navigate that. I do that with my tables in a way as well, where I'm like, before I disconnect from, because I run all my pro games through Foundry and Discord. So at the end of the game, I'll usually ask everyone like, all right, so like, here's how much IP I'm giving you. A reminder to make sure you've noted you've earned X amount of eddies on your sheets if like they've just finished a gig. All right, so like with that out of the way, was there anything else that anyone wanted to discuss with me or ask me before we part ways this week? And then it's that opens the door to exactly that kind of discussion. And like sometimes it's rulings questions, sometimes it's curiosities about the world that we're now suddenly interfacing with. All of it is, ooh, thank you so much. I got chicken bake. And Pop, thank you so much. All right, beautiful. Yeah, so I have more caffeine.
Oh joy!
I just need to find.
Well, while I let you cut into that,
yes.
I'm going to cut in here. So, of course, like right here, getting food, absolutely. Like making sure that
it's important.
Afterwards, you are like, even though you are GMing, you are burning energy. You are like running a game. It could be taxing for some of us. You need that moment to just sit down, drink, eat, and recharge. And even if it's like talking with the others, you just need that moment to just kind of pull away from the game. And I will, just kind of tell my players after a bit, like, all right, guys, I need to go do, post care. I will see you guys next week, or I will see you soon. And then I go on my merry way. Usually for me, that is going to go get dinner, go get something to drink, go pester my wife, because sometimes I don't see her all day, even though she's like across the hallway, because I'm working on things, taking care of business. And I need to get up and away from the table.
Yep.
So that way I can just, it's not that I don't like being at the table, it's just I need that space for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I will often, afterwards though, after I've taken time to sit down, I have all my needs taken care of, I will just, and you don't have to have like a paper and pencil to do this. Just sit back. You don't have to look on the VOD. You don't have to look at the play-by-play. How was that session? Overall, it could be a good session. But questions I like to ask myself: what was the highlight of that session? What did you see that your players do that really was the highlight for you? Always ask about you. Like, yes, your player is important, but you are important when you are on your own post-game.
Yep.
What was a highlight that happened at the table that was big for you? Did your NPCs do something that you found that, hey, that worked really well, I should keep that in my pocket for later? Mm-hmm. I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
Have you, like, where do I want to go next with this story? Now, given that is definitely a question to ask during, planning as well. But, like, the party has completed this task. Make a note for where you're going next. And then, finally, was there something I could have done just a little better? There are very few times where I have sat down and said, okay, yeah, I really fucked that one up. Because I have. We all have made bad calls. But instead of beating on myself for, hey, why did you do it? That was bad. That was terrible. I disagree. I remember one specific GM would schedule his food deliveries to interrupt 3-hour sessions every time, I think. What is wrong with the other 21 hours a day that you cannot receive and eat your food then? This is just... this is more for me, personally, like how I handle things. If that's not a thing that for you, Fiber, totally understandable.
Well, and I think some of it boils down to under what context are you GMing and how disruptive is that to your flow? Because, like, if you're, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, where there's a couple different ways that a GM can be running a game or purposes that you're running for. So there are the games you GM just for fun for you and your table, and it's usually the very casual ones they run with your friends. Not that you can't take those games seriously, but there is far less that fucks with your flow in that, I would say, in terms of, like, if you get food in the middle, you're probably fine. Like, that's not going to mess with flow too much. But if you're streaming or even running professionally, that food, if you aren't able to, like, eat and run at the same time, will mess with things. That is where, like, I try... Even like right now, getting food in the middle of this, I try not to, if I'm going to be eating at all, let that really get in the way of what I'm here to do. And I think that it's still more important that you get the chance to eat than the other purposes, but just to bear it. It's like anything. It's if you're planning the logistics of a game and you have a very, like, explicit purpose in mind for that game. Make sure that when you're running the logistics that involve things like your actual needs, whether that's like a bathroom break or food or whatever, that you just consider like the pacing of your story and things like that. Mm-hmm. Because like if there comes a point where you're like, all right, if I pause right now, even if it's like the second before you're rolling initiative for a combat encounter, that is usually a good pausing point. So if you have needs that need to be met in the moment, that is the time to call for 15 minutes and say, okay, give me 15. I've got to eat food real quick, and I feel like this is a good spot. So if everyone needs to use the bathroom, get water, etc., this is a great time for us to collectively take 15, do that, and then come back to the table. That is, I think, very important to like have that in mind. But yeah, like always, if you're streaming a game that is a very different vibe already than most TTRPG GMs are going to really interact with. There's a lot of us out there that don't stream their games. Like, I know the majority of my games nowadays aren't streamed. So like when I do stream them, obviously that's considered, but it's part of the plan when I do it. So yeah, dinner at 5, game at 6, snack at roughly 10:30. That's a good idea. Like that's honestly a good structure, especially if it's a 5 or 6 hour window. Yeah.
Well, like 6 to, I assume, 10. So it's like what, 4-hour window for games. So probably like a midway, somewhere in there. That's about on par, like with me with Red Genesis, where we have that midway break as well, where Kay ends up bringing me something to eat halfway through, so I'll take a moment to eat, recoup, and also prep things for combat. Also, when we look at like what could I've done a little better, this is not you, like when you critique yourself, this is not you trying to nitpick every little thing, but it's just like, did something feel off in the flow? Did you maybe need to try something different? Was the encounter not quite as on par as you had hoped? And I'm not saying fix all of the world's problems right then, right now, but this is just more, I need to come back and think about this later. And then I go on my way and take care of my, take care of myself and, go about my next couple days. And then I'll come back to when I normally plan my games and I look at my notes of like, okay, so this is what I found. This is what I need to deal with. Great. You gave yourself a couple days to get away from the table and just, take care of life. And then come back to the drawing board. So that way you're not, slaving away over it.
Right. Well, and especially, and this is where I was saying at the start of the this half of things, this is where that honeymoon period is really deceptive, because you'll want to keep spending more time with it. And some of this is like precautionary, right? Like some of this you have to actually do preemptively, where you leave that time and understand why that's valuable, despite the fact that you might want to continue, like, especially if you're like me and working on something as more than just prepping for the next session, and you're trying to like develop, whether that's an actual play, or you are like one of those GMs who is like building out your whole campaign as a like a pre-written thing that you can put out to other GMs or whatever. Because like I know some people do prep their stuff that way. I would say 90% of the time, if you aren't going to publish it, that is going way over the top of what you should be doing, because it's a lot of energy to do that and a lot of focus, and you're writing things like you would read them in a book. But if that's how you like to prep, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you, as a lot of energy for something you're not going to put into public. space and to public eyes. But yeah, I feel like if you are in that honeymoon period, especially make sure that you're leaving room for other stuff. Take care of yourself. Clean the house. Do the dishes. Like those are the little things, especially for those of us who are a little bit older, and have those responsibilities that if you're kind of like me, where like I don't have a family yet, like I don't have little kids or anything, you can get self-neglectful if you spend too long in it. So like that's a very important thing to remember as well when we start talking about self-care. Caring for your immediate environment is self-care too. So it's worth keeping that in mind. As I say this with stacks of books behind me, clearly, like I need to take my own advice to a certain extent there, but it's very much an important element of that. Yeah,
water your streamers.
It's fair. Yeah,
no. Also on top of the self-care evaluation. And this evaluation goes more beyond the, you got done with session. This is more, you are sitting down with yourself at least every once in a while. I do it at least once every couple months, where I will see like how I am doing. And so some things I'll think about is just like, how enthusiastic am I for this game? How am I feeling about how the game is going? Is there something I need to address with the table? Is there something else that needs to take priority over the game? And when you take time to sit down and really talk to yourself about this, the thing I have found is I had to walk away from fantasy. I hit burnout back in like 2019. Because like after like 2.5 solid years of GMing, I was GMing 3.5 and first edition Pathfinder, which I did bounce back to first edition Pathfinder after my burnout because new group of people that also weren't like, well, back in the old day, it's just like, okay, well, let's see what you got. Also, it kind of falls under the philosophies of I was playing with a couple of OSR style players where, like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with old school role playing. There is nothing wrong with it. But don't be a grognard. I'll admit, I could be a grognard occasionally, especially about like, well, back in 2020, we didn't have all these fancy things, and not the Cyberpunk 2020, but like core Cyberpunk cred. But,
right, where it's like you hear, and I'm less.
Oh, you kids with your fancy tools.
I'm less guilty of this because I pretty actively embrace the new stuff. But it very much is like one of those things where, for me, the harder thing is keeping track of the releases, because sometimes you'll have such a density of new systems added to the game that are just like, oh boy, all right, now I got to keep in mind how stealth net running works. I got to keep in mind how investigations work. Investigations are the thing I still do not have totally locked in my head. That is like a system I've not really used much. But that's the sort of thing that I run into trouble with. It's about making sure that however I'm running my game, with whatever systems I'm running the game with, I am being mindful of, does it serve the narrative to include this system at my table? Is, I think, like the best way I can put it. Because like I'm a more storytelling focused GM anyway. So I don't get super twisted up in the mechanics, other than to make sure that like if we are using a mechanic, we are using it correctly, and like we're running it as accurately as possible to the rules because they were made that way for a reason. And then like by doing that enough, you kind of get a feel for like, okay, this is the rule as written. Here's how I'm going to do it, because I feel as though as written, it doesn't kind of entirely encapsulate the spirit of the way I want it to work within a certain scenario or a certain campaign. So I'm going to like redefine it slightly this way. All of that, I think stems out of the idea of like, if you as a GM lean more towards like a high precision, I want to run the rules as written, I want to be like as accurate as possible. And if you feel a degree of bitterness about the fact that like, God, like the new system that just was introduced to the game totally redefines the system of homebrew that I was running, and now I need to like scrap everything. It's like, no, you don't. Do whatever feels best to you. Like, you don't need to worry or get bitter about the fact that the next time you start a new table, like if you're like Diamond and I and you are running for strangers a lot for whatever reason, don't get bitter, just get educated, or say, you know, I don't like the way that Artel Saurian did this specific system, so I'm going to keep doing it the way I did it. That's equally valid. There's no problem or shame or issue with you running things the way you want to run them. I see a lot in the community, people get upset when new systems are introduced and they're like, this is totally antithetical to the way I'm running the game or my vision for the game. And that's valid and fine. Like, you can feel that way and run your game however you want to. I feel like that's the biggest thing with Cyberpunk, that like, because of how defined it gets, a lot of GMs forget that the golden rule of GMing is what you say goes. And if you don't like the way the game handles a certain mechanic or whatever, like, you have every right to tell your players, hey, I don't like the way the system works or the way that this rule works or whatever, so this is the way I'm going to do it instead. You just need to make sure that you and your table are all of the same understanding if you're going to do that. That's really the only thing you need to be worried about. As long as that's happened, you're fine. Like, do what you want to do. Yeah, don't get bitter, get educated. Put that on a fortune cookie. I mean, yeah, basically. I would say if I could count the number of times and be paid for each one where someone got upset because the rules changed or were defined in a way that they weren't previously and they didn't like the way that those were defined, I would be pretty well off at this point. I wouldn't say I'd be rich, but I would definitely have retirement fund money instead of not having retirement fund money. So like, yeah, it's interesting that is like the first response to change like that is you get mad about it. I'm like, I want to learn, like, and think about why did they do it that way instead of doing it the way that I did it. And honestly, at least for me personally, and this, your mileage is definitely going to vary depending on the way you run your table. And I'm curious to hear your reaction to this, even though this is kind of like a little bit of a tangent out of GM self-care and evaluation. But I guess this kind of does fall into the evaluation part. Most of the time, at least for me, when the system that I've been using to run the game gets defined within the rules in a DLC or something else, more often than not, I typically find that the solution Artel landed on was one that I was already like 90% of the way to with the way I was running it. It's very, very, very rare that I encounter a situation where it is completely different the way that Artel has decided to define something or rule on something, that it's like completely antithetical to the way that I was doing it. Usually I end up at the same conclusion. My methods just look slightly different. Diamond, does that usually come your way as well?
Yes.
Where you usually find the same thing? Okay.
like with the CEMK, and yes, I know we know I have opinions on it. And,
You do.
Yeah.
I like that yellow
opinions.
box far more than you do. I know.
Don't get me wrong, I don't mind the yellow box. It's just more one of those things, just like, it's so, the corporations are already taken over. It's like, great. The humanity gain system, though, that came out of the CEMK, that is what I've been looking for, like, for a long while. And the fact that, like, I had ways of, like, people regaining humanity through certain things, but now that we had a much more defined, like, what can do this, it has made it so much easier for me to be able to help people recover humanity, like, keep track of instances where it's like, okay, you did something that very much would contribute towards this. Throws D6. All right, congratulations, you have this now. And even with the long-term stuff, where it's just like, now there's a reason that you aren't just, Cube Hotel kibble scumming it the entire time. Kind of like. Let's see, Eraser. Unannounced rule changes piss people off because it's essentially a breach of contract. GM hung out of shingle to gun game X. Players signed up to play game X. GM changes the terms without warning. This is why when these things happen, we have discussions with our players.
Yeah. And I'd say that unannounced rule changes, quote unquote, they're only really a breach of that trust that you're calling a contract there, if you don't discuss it with your players first. Like, exactly. If you plan to run the game with rule A in place, and then it gets defined by, like, in this case, Artel Storing Games for Red, as instead of running it the way that we were running rule A, we are instead going to be running it by the way that they've defined it, which is rule B. And so you then, rather than being like, unilaterally as the GM deciding I'm using rule B, you are going to want to ask your players, because I've done this before when Artel's introduced things that are like right up next to what I'm used to. I will say, all right, guys, so to this point, I have been ruling this as, this rule, right? I've been doing it this way. And because we are about halfway into a campaign, I understand changing this now could feel very jarring. And I do not want you to feel as though the game is not the one you signed up for. So is this a rule that now that we have it better defined, you would like to run it that way? Or do we want to continue running it for this campaign the way that we've been running it?
Oh, okay. Now, Eraser, what you mentioned there, sorry, Emmerron,
No, you're good, you're good. You didn't cut me off at all. Yeah.
But like what you said there, that changes kind of the scope of this, where it's not so much official rulings. It is now the GM where instead of the GM evaluating, do I like this game because of X, this is now, the GM, this is now more the player and GM over a homebrew rule, where that should have been discussed at session 0.
So for anyone who's just listening and isn't able to read chat, or for those of you with bad eyesight like me and are having trouble reading chat in the middle of the screen,
you need me to read it?
No, I'll read it. So Eraser says, so the first comment, which I believe Diamond did read, but just so we have the full context, is unannounced rule changes piss people off because it's essentially a breach of contract. The GM hung out a shingle to, and I believe he meant to say, run game X. Players signed up to play game X. Then GM changes the terms without warning. And then clarified, I'm more talking from my 2020 days when the GM fully intended to use homebrew rules and didn't say shit about it until dice hit the table. That, yes, that is very much like, and I know in 2020, that is a game system that I know had a lot of different homebrew ways to do certain things, net running being like one of the chiefest examples of that. And yeah, that is definitely more of a lack on the GM side of it, where it's like, if you are running a game, unless the homebrew, because this is something that I've seen at D&D tables, once you get a certain degree of popularity with certain homebrew rules, it's kind of like when you play Uno, right? Like, there's some homebrew rules with Uno that don't actually exist. Like, they're literal house rules that have become so ubiquitous with the game itself. Like, the prime example of this would be like stacking your draw cards, right? Like, if you're able to stack draws, whoever can't play a draw card, it is a cumulative. That is a house rule, but it's so well known in the cultural understanding of that game that it bears, even in that case, it bears questioning, are we playing with this rule in play or not? Because there are some people who will be like, I hate the way that ends up feeling. For whomever gets dealt the raw hand on that, we aren't playing with that rule. And then that's fine. But again, you've had this discussion now of the home rules you use should always, regardless of ubiquity, be discussed by the GM and the players at the table.
Yeah.
Because it is never good to feel like you got rug pulled as a player because your GM is doing things a different way than you had conceived was the correct way that the game should be run, or the way that you are used to playing. That is always a discussion.
And I know we're kind of like getting there on time, like we're about 15 out, but I wanted to go back because I saw Red was talking about like hitting a burnout phase with 5e, and especially like when Tasha's Cauldrons and Tome of Foes hit, which I do remember. Basically, Mordecai's Tome of Foes caused Volo's Guide to Monsters, which was a pretty pricey book when it came out, to basically become useless. It became basically a paperweight, and that the player's handbook lost a lot. Like, even though the player's handbook was still being sold at a certain price, that it lost some value because of Tasha's Cauldron. While I personally have my gripes and grumbles about 5e, those particular things really swore me off 5e for good. Was just these when it comes to certain games where I'm like, do I like how the game is evolving? 5e was one of those where it's just like, no, I don't. Especially because of watching, and like I always say, well, GM, I have 5 levels in this, 3 levels in that, and because I have these 2 feats and these spells, your boss is now dead. Can we have our experience and move on? That's because that was a real thing that happened at my table.
Yeah, and that shit is
one of the things that
awful. Like, that's so bad.
Where I kind of looked at the party and I was like, well, that's what I had planned for session today, and I had a whole, multi-phase fight for you. I don't have anything else, so I guess I will see you guys next week. Like, literally, we were in session for 10 minutes, and the game was done.
That's, and
I felt awful about it afterwards, and I had to sit there, and I kind of reached out to the group. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm going to be honest. I have exhausted every trick I had for this. I need to find another game to play. And I went offline I left the table for about 2 years until a certain a certain Filipino lad was just like, hey, Diamond, have you ever heard of Cyberpunk? And I'm like, what? And then that's how I got back into the game, with Cyberpunk Red. And then I returned to Pathfinder 1E with some stuff that I liked from D&D 3.5. More for the simple fact that, like, the rule structures of 3.5 were something that I really liked compared to the fast and loose of 5e.
Yeah, well,
I want to play 4e, but, like, It is hard to find people that will play 4E.
Oh, I'll play the
wanna give it
fuck
a
out
whirl.
of 4th edition. I will play the fuck out of 4th edition.
I want to give
that.
4th a whirl at some point.
I love that system. Although you play Daggerheart, and I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
the way that I view Daggerheart is very much this is what 4th edition wanted to be.
Okay.
It's very, they're very similar in a lot of the meaningful ways. The main difference with 4th is that there was a lot of feats. Like the feat bloat in 4th became a problem enough by the end that they released a second line of 4th edition books. It's honestly, it's kind of funny because it's not all that dissimilar in some ways to the way that they've done the 2024 update to 5th edition, but it was done far better. But because what they did was they released something called the D&D Essentials line, and that was essentially 4th edition with all the 4th edition text still there, but it pared down the feats in the game. It pared down the number of classes and subclasses in the game. It streamlined everything so that when you came back to that game, you weren't, as a new player especially, like where I was coming from, you wouldn't bounce off of it from analysis paralysis. You would instead have a much narrower field of like, here's what you can pick. And it made it not suck, which is W in my opinion. I was very much okay with that.
One of the other things, though, like with your self-evaluation, where, you know, if you're enjoying the game, great, continue. Make adjustments as needed. Mm-hmm. But sometimes maybe it's, do you need a change of genre? Do you need to stop GMing for a little while? Do you need to step away from the table for a while? Do you need to find a new table? Because sometimes that's what you gotta do. Like, I had to leave that old group behind where they very much were like... I feel bad because there were some players that were like really excited to be at my table, but like, you know, just having encounters shit stomped by, you know, the barbarian druid combo or whoever else was there. I had to find something else, and I found a new group that, you know, we had kind of agreed there was a social contract at the table that power building, like while power building is going to happen, we have people that min-max. There was an agreement made that if it gets to a point where suddenly encounters are getting bulldozed because of a player or because of certain things that the party is doing, we need to, you know, retrofit some things so that way the story is still good without the mechanics demolishing it.
Yeah.
And it's part of why I like Red. The mechanics are there to help the story. It's not so much we're playing a war game.
Well, and
Fabula Ultima. Sorry.
No. Well, and I think this because you brought up Fabula, I think this actually kind of dovetails. I was just gonna say,
like finding new games
because of the aforementioned stuff I've said about Red in my part of the episode, where like players take a lot of agency in Red and they study the game to be better at it, and like you have this transparency that a lot of other games honestly lack in term of like, you know the DVs to hit things, the DVs, like how they would scale up or down for certain types of challenges. So like, as a player very consciously, once you know the game system, even like moderately well, you know what it means to beat a 15 versus a 17. You know where those breakpoints lie and why they're important. And that is something that I think makes Red better for that purpose, because what it leans toward then, this is what Fabula and Daggerheart both do very well. That's kind of their thesis statement for why they're good systems in the first place, is that it gives players of those systems and Red as well agency in what happens. So players aren't just playing whatever the GM is throwing out, almost like the GM is playing a computer with programming and all of that nonsense. The GM and the players are one and the same. You are all telling a story. You are all working together. And what you guys do together is so much better than what any one of you would have done if it was just up to you and you alone. And I feel like so often D&D can be like that, but its mechanics are so wargamey and niche. And there's a lot of games that I could say this about. It's not just a D&D thing, but D&D is certainly the one that I have the most experience with saying pretty comprehensively. It forces you to do some really weird, hinky things with the system to get it working as a storytelling vessel quite as well as you want it to. And that's where things like Daggerheart and Fabula just do a much better job of that, because they not only rely on the players having some agency, but they also reward it for the players involving themselves. And they both instruct the game master to like not hold on to their version of the story tight. They say hold it, like Daggerheart very explicitly says, hold the story loosely, because it is so much better when you hear someone with an inspired idea and let them take the lead and follow where that thread goes than it is to just say my version is best, interpret it as you want to interpret it for yourself, and like force the rest of your table to go along with your vision of what that looks like. I think Red is for all of its mechanical complexities and the crunch that does exist within it, I feel like it really does empower players pretty meaningfully to like have that same level of agency, just without the mechanical depth of other systems that they place upon those elements, essentially.
AD&D 3E 3.5 in my early days did a fantastic job on player choice, but provided, and yeah, at the end of the day, looking for games where I like, depending on what you want, like I personally want games that have a little bit more of a balance between, you know, player agency and also the GM's ability to run the story. And like, you don't need to follow a set of rails, but maybe you are going down, you know, a path, and there's going to be different ways that you're going to get to your end goal.
Yeah.
That being said, make sure that when you are evaluating, like, take some time to make sure that like you aren't frustrated with like any particular thing with any particular player, that this is a very much a, you are looking at this from a very overhead lens of, or unobstructed lens, what's clinical, I'm trying to think of the word of just like emotions aside, like looking at it from
objectively.
That objective, yes, thank you. But yeah, look at like how you're doing from an objective lens.
Yeah.
And if things just feel like they're not working, find another game if you need to.
Yeah.
Find ways to change your game if you need to as well.
Yeah. No, and it is never a bad thing. And this is, I think, especially for groups that really are hung up on D&D. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about like, my group would never play another game because we are like, my friends are too deep in D&D, but God, I want to run Cyberpunk for them, or God, I want to run Daggerheart for them, or, you know, any game. Like, this could literally apply to any game. I've heard that refrain way more than makes me happy, honestly. Because I think that ultimately it's so easy to find these grooves that like we're really, really comfortable in as players. But I feel like there comes a point, and I don't know what the heck that just was. There comes a point where ultimately you need to, sometimes you need to step away from a system, and if you're not loving it anymore, there's times to be firm with your table and just let them know, hey guys, so just so that everyone here is aware, I no longer have a love for this like I once did. I want to try something else. I've got a one shot for this other system that I would like to play. And like just bring that very honestly to the table. You would be shocked at how well that can go over if you're being emotionally honest with the people that you regularly hang out with, especially if it's a group of your friends. Like if you're regularly running games for the same group of people and you are in that position of like usually being the GM, there is no issue whatsoever with telling them, I need to try something else. Next week, let's do this instead. And you run, I mean, this is the beauty of everything that isn't D&D too, is that nearly every system that I've encountered in the wild these days has a quick start that is free. And you could just download it and try it. And you have characters, you have maps, you have the rules, basic enough rule set to like run the game. Red has it, Shadowscar has it, Daggerheart has it, Delta Green has it, like Call of Cthulhu has it. There's literally like, it would be a shorter list to describe the tabletop RPGs I have seen without free quick start one shot content than the ones that are inclusive of it. Like that is how common this is now, that you do not need to buy a starter set necessarily to get a feel for the game. You can try it for free. The only thing that you might be lacking if you do that are like some of the dice or materials. But if you've already got those for another game, like for Daggerheart, you need to have 2 differently colored D12s. That is the curiosity of that system. But as long as you can like convince one of your friends at the table to lend you one of their D12s, if you don't have a second set of your own that's a different color, like you've solved the problem. So yeah.
And even then, like, I'm trying to think if Triangle Agency has a quick start or not. You just need like 6 D4s for the entire table.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll look that up actually while you continue.
It might not. But that being said, let's go to Q&A, because I feel like we've hashed this out. But at the end of the day, take care of yourself. Burnout is awful. And if you're starting to hit burnout, don't try to push through it. It will make you hate the games that you love. Any last comments though from you, Emmerron?
Taking care of yourself is really important, especially if you are in the space that we're in. But even if you are just running like 1 game a month, especially I would say if you're running just 1 game a month, it is really important that you're honest with yourself and your table. And if you aren't feeling it and you know you're not feeling it, be okay with telling your players that. Take the time you need to feel good for you. But honestly, like, it's like everything. If you take the time to feel good, your table will feel better for it. If you're emotionally honest with your table, they will be emotionally honest with you back. And I think that if you're all friends, like that will almost never be received in anything but a very like, oh yeah, no big deal, let's just do this instead kind of way. If you are like us and you do run professional games or actual play games or a combination thereof, this becomes like even more, like exponentially more important, because the downstream of you not taking care of yourself isn't one group or one game or 1 week being affected. There is a cluster that just kind of piles up super hard. So if you aren't taking care of yourself, like, do that, make better choices where that's concerned for you, so that you are in the best position you can be to run the games that you need to run. Because again, if you're like us, that's probably some of your paycheck. If you are running an actual play, there are viewers that expect that to be on at a certain time, and consistency is king. It's a big reason why even today there was a point where Diamond came into my office here and was like, "Hey, you good? You look out of it." And I just hadn't had any caffeine yet, and I'm like, "I will get this done. Like, I will be fine."
All right, I was just checking on you to make
No,
sure
no,
you're
no.
okay.
It's not a criticism. It's very much the point of, like, if you can see someone and, like, check in on them, make sure they're good. And, like, there was a part of her that was asking me, who very much felt, like, resoundingly that, like, she's like, "Are you good to do the podcast today? This isn't even a game we're running. This is just us talking about the game." And, like, it's very much checking to make sure, like, do you have the energy to do what you're doing right now? And I'm like, I know the consistency is important, and I will be fine. Especially now that the game I normally run after this is done. Yes, I run a late game on Thursdays sometimes. Has been canceled for the night. I can rest a lot easier. But knowing where that line is for you, knowing where the line of pushing would get me in trouble versus I'm okay, I can push through this and maybe rest in the morning or whatever. Know that line. Be very honest with yourself about it. It serves no one and helps none at all if you are not honest and doing the right thing for yourself in that context. Briefly, just to go back to Triangle Agency, on itch.io, they have something they call the Delta test. That is an outdated version of the game, but they say the feel is there. So, like, this would be closer to, like, the Jumpstart kit for Red, where the rules are different a little bit. But if you want to try the feel of the game, and then maybe pick up the understanding of the rules when you buy the full thing, this would be the way to do that. I've put it in Twitch chat. I will try to remember to put it somewhere in the comments or description of the episode. But yeah, it's very tangential. So that does exist though. So if you do want to try it out, that is an option for that game as well. And that's usually the way of it, right? Like, is if you know where to look, you will find the quick starts for things. It's either going to be on itch, or it's going to be on DriveThruRPG, or some places they'll just be hosted directly through a website. Regardless of where it is, that's a great way for you to try a new system, and it is okay to use that as like a getting away from it tool to, like, part from your normal game and, like, take a break. That's what I honestly recommend.
All right, so we got a question from Red. I also have a question from Fish as well. Which one do you want first?
Let's start with Fish, because Fish usually has some interesting questions.
All right, so Fish asks, what is your least favorite type of NPC to portray? Oh, that's actually
That's a really good one. I think for me it's the person lost to cruelty. Like, when you have a NPC, like an enemy, that is so cruel and, like, revels in it, right? And I'm not talking about in, like, in a sick, twisted way, but, like, in a way that is, like, actively vicious toward the players. I like running tables that are not confrontational between me and the players. Sometimes the story itself will call for an NPC just to be that way, right? That is really difficult for me to portray. Because I'm always, like, if you've played at my table, you know, I'm cheering for you. As much as the players are cheering for their success, I, as the game master, am cheering for their success. That's actually, like, one of the biggest tips I give to new GMs is do that. Cheer for your players. Do not be mad at them winning. Winning is good. Winning without consequences, or like if they made it trivially easy, like what Diamond was talking about a little earlier in this half of the episode, that's a little fucked up because that means they're not upholding their end of the contract to kind of allow for there to be a challenge presented. But I think some of that comes down to which system you're playing to. Like Cyberpunk, you're rarely going to have your whole encounter trivialized. And if you do end up getting something like that, there's always ways to make that more interesting on the back end. So like you can say, yeah, that was what I had planned. Here's the backup plan that I had in pocket just in case. And it's way easier to just like bring in a chase or something. But yeah, that needlessly cruel, that like really flips that dynamic I have with my players of like being their cheerleader and celebrating their successes and marveling at their innovative thinking and stuff like that when they do something really creative. That's hard because it forces me to like shift that mind space over to like, I'm attacking you as your character very personally. And that's not comfortable for me.
Oh, and probably one of my least favorite NPCs, like needlessly cruel, there is that, but also just murder hobos. People that kill for no reason, then the thrill of the hunt, the thrill of just slaughter. Like, I understand there, like, you know, there are like chaotic evil creatures out there that literally that is part of how they function. That everything is a threat, they must get rid of it. But even then, that gives them a motive that they see everything as a threat. But those that kill just to kill, it doesn't make for a good story. And I always avoid those kinds of characters. Like, after I've had one, and I just realized, you know, that doesn't make for a good story, I moved on from that. Like, I like a good serial killer, don't get me wrong. A good serial killer, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
but those
Eraser's answer is the bar wench and the joy toy, and I'm like,
okay, look,
not horribly wrong on that either. The dynamic more, because like we've talked about this before, but that dynamic can be very uncomfortable.
Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody loves Gladies, all right? Yes. Everybody loves their very heavily smoking bartender.
Good old Gladys. Yeah, no, that's very. And see, that's the thing. Like, yeah, there are ways to disarm that dynamic and make it feel less icky. But yeah, it's rare that I feel good about role playing those types of characters as well. But I will say it's easier to get into that headspace for me than cruelty. Cruelty is hard. Yeah. Cruelty is not an easy thing.
Don't get me wrong, I can handle that partially just because my background. But still, like, wait, hold on. Eraser, I have many questions. I don't think they can be answered here on stream, but I have questions.
Yeah. Yeah, full contact DRP is not. We don't do that at my table. There's the full on Black Panther, but we don't do that here.
Yeah. Then again, never mind. I don't think I want. I don't think I want questions to that right now. I've encountered some things recently that I just like. Even after a hot shower this morning, I still don't feel clean.
Yeah, no, that was. We were having that discussion before, and we won't have it again here. So, what is Red's question to continue forward through that?
Red, let me scroll up here in chat. If you had a want to stream a different TTRPG, what is it? Ooh.
I've got one right off the rip. Daggerheart. Done. Easiest question I've had all week. Yeah, no, Daggerheart.
Maybe go a little bit further with it. Why Daggerheart?
Because Daggerheart's storytelling potential is fucking insane. It is a direct improvement of D&D 4th edition. And the mechanics actively support storytelling from both sides of the table in a way that so few other games, like Fabula Ultima is literally the only other game that I've played and can run that I feel captures even close to the same spirit. And Fabula is very crunchy at the combat layer in a way that Daggerheart doesn't have to be. Daggerheart's very fluid in that way, and it allows me to be as responsive to change as I am in Red. It is both remarkably simple and incredibly deep, and I love it in a way that, like, I would need to. There will be a review that I make for this game. It is gonna happen. One of these days, I am going to sit here in front of the camera. It might even be tonight. I'm going to record my full thoughts on the system because, like, I have read that rulebook cover to cover twice now. I have played, I think, about 6 sessions. I've played 6 sessions under another GM and run 3. I've run 3 as the GM of the quick start, and this game is just so good. Yeah, no, that's why Daggerheart.
Like when it comes to Daggerheart in that way, like, it does scratch an itch of fantasy TTRPG. I'm like, yeah, I can get behind this. Now, I suppose in my case, there is Triangle Agency, but I need some more time with Triangle Agency. But personally, and I know some people are going to groan at the sound of it, but Pathfinder First Edition. I know, it's big, it's hefty, it's crunchy. But there is something about Pathfinder First Edition. Now, of course, 3.5 was what I cut my teeth on. Pathfinder First Edition improves on it, provides the an amazing amount of options there. But I'll even do you one better. I am a fan of the highly acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. And there is a few fans, a large community of fans, who have worked very, very hard to make a Pathfinder First Edition template for a lot of the Final Fantasy classes out there, and even provide some various topics on settings, including that of, like, Eorzea, for example, or others such as Final Fantasy VII setting,
Midgar.
Midgar, yes. I was like, Midgard? No, Midgar, yes.
Midgar, yeah.
Midgard, that's where we live. Anyway, that was, but, like, Pathfinder First Edition, I could definitely do it. Wow, is this what it feels like to have LSD flashbacks? Oh, God.
A Pathfinder 1E callback. Yeah, no, I mean, I've always wanted to try Pathfinder, quite honestly, because it's always one that, whenever I hear people talk about it, I hear them wax poetic about it, the way that most people do about D&D.
I would love a chance to play second edition, because it sounds like the action there is just like you have action. So you could take 3 move actions, three bonus actions, 3 actions. And that sounds interesting, in my opinion.
And this is a reason why I really like Daggerheart is there's no initiative in Daggerheart.
Yep.
You just do. And it's just down to the dice, like, did you succeed or did you fail?
Did you roll with hope or fear?
Or did you roll with hope or fear? That determines where the spotlight goes after your turn's done.
You know, maybe I might do some reading on Final Fantasy D20 and see, like, how I feel about it. Yeah. It might be a blast. I might be all about it.
I was about to say you were running a Final Fantasy stream for a while, right?
I was not. I was in one.
You were in one. Oh.
But yeah, things kind of anyway. But I got one more question from someone that wants to remain anonymous about this.
Okay. Cool.
I am an actively practicing Buddhist.
Okay.
And I enjoy the fact that my culture and my religion have made it into Cyberpunk 2077, but I feel that much like many other things, times do change. And I
Sure.
imagine with the time of the Red, things would be not quite as easy to keep the vow of peace. If I was to play a practicing Buddhist, where I don't commit violence, would less than lethal seem like something reasonable enough?
I mean, I would take it from, because I think 2077 gives us honestly a pretty good lead on this, where they don't expect you to adhere to strict nonviolence the same way that maybe you would in today's world. Rather, they expect you to preserve life, right? Or like not kill. In that way, I would say, yeah,
needlessly kill, yeah.
You don't hit the like what I would consider the Buddhist fail state of the one mission you get where a man wants you to go help his brother when the Maelstrom kidnaps him. The only way you hit the fail state on that is if you actually kill any of the Maelstrom. The moment that you do that, you've hit the fail state. But if you just knock them out, either shocked them, stunned them, bludgeoned them to unconsciousness but not death, all of these options are reasonable ones that they will just accept and be like, thank you so much, you for upholding my beliefs, and they'll let you walk. They'll let you actually talk to them later about the theology behind like their beliefs and stuff like that in the context of the world if you do that as well. So like I would honestly take the lead from that because the Time of the Red is probably not all that different where that's concerned in terms of like the way that faith and its practitioners kind of manifest within the world.
And also another tone on there, it's not that I want, religion to be absolutely untouched in this game. There absolutely needs to be some perversion of it. I know Diamond has talked about having a Buddhist temple that was turned into a Tiger Claw nightclub before in one of her streams.
Yeah.
Which, temple is one of those places over in Old Japantown that the Tiger Claws took over.
Well, and I would say that there's some real world examples of Buddhism getting like there are militant Buddhists, which is such a contradiction that I personally am I'm a practicing Christian, but like I love world religion from like the same way I like seeing where we all have commonality. And so I've learned enough about Buddhism to know that militant Buddhists feel very like wrong. Like that's the ultimate perversion of your faith and what you are professing to believe in. So I would lean toward that. And like, if you wanted to examine that element of it and play off of that as your like, that being a character arc that you push your players through, like if there are any other players in your party who are themselves Buddhist, or if you are yourself are a player and you are not the GM, and you have made your character this way, I would have a discussion with your GM about like, hey, here's some stuff I found.
And also there are like martial arts that like real world practice, such as jiu-jitsu or judo, where it's very much you are moving the person around you. You are not trying to harm them. You are just trying to get them to get off of you. Or you are just trying to get them to a point where they're gonna leave you alone.
I believe Aikido is another one of those that are a highly defensive martial art. Yeah.
So this is something to consult with your GM, but in my personal opinion, because of the way things evolve over time, that is a thing. In fact, I am a tarot reader. We have Night City Tarot, and there's quips in there that I see as like, oh yeah, our practice absolutely got perverted.
Yeah.
Like the way Misty does things in 2077, it's just like where you are always selling your practice. It's just like, yeah, that's a little bit of a perversion there. We see it nowadays. Like I never sell my readings. But yeah, that is absolutely something that, like, there are fortune tellers, and I have to agree. I laughed when I saw that was a thing. So this is absolutely a talk to your GM.
Yeah.
But take time to look at your options.
Yeah.
And I mean, even as Norse Pagan finding that, yeah, literally we just have a mead bar as like a hat tip up in Watson. Like,
yeah.
I want more details, please.
It's really interesting too, and this is when I was talking earlier, both in my half the episode and earlier in this one, just talking about this is where you as a player also get a lot of agency. If this is you playing instead of you running, if you talk with your GM, I guarantee you, like 90% of the time, you come with your your research done and your thesis prepped to your GM saying like, hey, so here's how militant Buddhism takes shape in the real world. Here's how I would propose doing it within our game world that you've already kind of established. This is what I'd like to see. Your GM is going to look at that. They're going to thank you for doing the research, and they're going to like pop off with excitement when you show them.
Well, also important note, just in from Discord. I am playing a medtech. There's an undertaker who is also a Buddhist at Herschel's crematorium. Like, oh my god! So they are reading through it. So like, yeah,
that's good.
I see it.
That's good. We dig it.
Do you have any questions on your side at all?
Nothing in DMs and nothing in chat. Other than, no. I saw the question mark on Fiberpunk's last comment, and I was like, that's not a question we need to ask. So there's also an article, Gods in the Gutter, I think in the back of Wildside, that talks about how religions have shifted in the face of the dark future. That's honestly, I'll have to look into that because I do have a digital copy of Wildside. So I'll have a look-see at that. Because yeah, I think religion is such a textured part of society that even I leave it out way more than I should. I feel like perversion of that, and honestly, in true belief in the face of such a commodification of so many religions is like something that can tell some very powerful, very interesting stories. So yeah, I will probably have a look at that. This is why we suggest to a lot of people a lot of the time, reading the 2020 books can be a gold mine. You just don't know what you'll find when you dig in there. But we are well over time.
Yeah. All right.
Page 89, well, Wild Side. Thanks, Eraser. Yeah, page 89. I'll look at that.
It's been a pleasure talking with you this week. I know we went a little long, but like we had some very, very thought-provoking topics come up here. That being said, as always, if you guys have questions, send them to wireheadspod@googlegroups.com, or send it into our Discord, send it in our DMs, or throw it here in chat. That being said, as always, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I'm Emmerron.
And have a good night. Goodbye now.
Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.